What's going on? I don't have the foggiest idea what's happening. We're failing to keep a grip on the airplane here. We lost all control of the airplane. What you're seeing is the start of quite possibly of aeronautics' most noteworthy secrets of first-class airplane, an experienced group, and an unexpected frightening plunge into the obscure. This is the tale of Air France Flight 447. Cautioning and disclaimer. On May 31, 2009, around 8 p.m. neighborhood time, Air France Flight 447 was pushed back from the entryway at Rio de Janeiro Worldwide Air Terminal in Brazil with foundation objective Paris, France. The course from Rio de Janeiro to Paris crosses the Atlantic Sea. Beginning in Brazil, it goes over the northern Atlantic, drawing closer the central area of Europe prior to arriving in Paris. This flight regularly takes about 12 hours. The airplane included was an Airbus A330-2000, the most up-to-date in Air France's armada. It went through a significant upgrade in April 2009 and had collected around 19,000 flying hours at the hour of the occurrence. To General Electric CF6 motors control the airplane with no archived issues. On board were 216 travelers of almost 30 identities. Most of travelers were French, Brazilian, or German residents. The travelers included business and occasion explorers. This airplane is intended for 2 pilots anyway. The 13-hour obligation time for the Rio to Paris course surpasses the 10 hours allowed before a break is expected by Air France's systems. This obligation time incorporates flight span and pre-flight readiness to consent. Flight 447 was run by 3 pilots. The chief, 58-year-old imprint pair. He had very nearly 11,000 flying long stretches of which more than 6,000 were as a skipper, remembering 1,700 hours for the Airbus team. A330, the Alleviation first official co-pilot. In the left seat, 37-year-old David Rabar. He had in excess of 6,000 flying hours. 4,500 hours were on this particular airplane type, and the principal official, the co-pilot in the right seat, was 32-year-old Pierre Cedric Bona. He had very nearly 3,000 flight hours, with 87 of those hours on this airplane type. At 8:30 neighborhood time, the Airbus took off. The departure continued regularly as expected for a completely stacked airplane, observing the guideline conventions for their trip and laying out steps to arrive at their overseas takeoff venture, adjusting to Air France's standard methodology. Around 20,000 ft, the help first official passed on the cockpit to start his really long reprieve period. The skipper assumed control over the left seat, while the primary official involved the right seat. A couple of seconds later, the flight arrived at its cruising elevation of flight level 35. The primary several hours of the flight were generally standard and unremarkable. At 1:35 a.m., the flight entered maritime airspace over the journey Atlantic Sea, upper east of the South American landmass. During that season, the mid-Atlantic area was known for its common atmospheric conditions, portrayed by a wide band of rainstorms extending across the intertropical assembly zone. This district is a band of low tension around the Earth that by and large lies close to the equator. The exchange winds of the northern and southern halves of the globe meet up here, prompting regular intertropical union zone tempests and weighty downpour. Flying through this area is frequently trying for pilots on the grounds that the rainstorms don't show up well on radar. Extra, these tempests don't have so a lot lightning as tempests in different spots, which can cause them to appear to be less serious than they are, particularly around evening time, while the airplane's robotized frameworks make do. The flight and essential obligation of the cockpit group includes regulating the flight's advancement, utilizing the installed climate radar to stay away from areas of Huge. Chopin's Air France Flight 447 experienced an area of tropical showers. Also, frail rainstorms described by feeble to direct updrafts and a high probability of choppiness. The group talked about their craving to move to flight level, flying through an area of feeble rainstorms disturbance, 370 to rise over the climate, yet they found it excessively warm to move to that height. Warm air is more slender, decreasing the lift the plane can create, which is essential for keeping up with flight. The group diminished the cockpit lights and turned on the arrival lights to see outside. It appears as though we're entering the overcast cover. It would have been great to climb. Currently, it will be fierce for my rest at 2 a.m. The help first official got back from his rest break. The chief left for his without giving appropriate instructions. Subsequently, the first official, now the pilot flying in the right seat and the assigned pilot in order in the chief's non-attendance, informed the help first official about the powerlessness, stomach muscle ill it why to climb and expected disturbance ahead. Like later experiences 6 minutes after the fact, the two first officials advised the lodge group of the impending disturbance anticipated in 2 minutes. The disturbance ahead ended up to be moderate, notwithstanding having the autopilot connected with the bank point changed between generally 3 to the right and 5 to the left. The first official changed the radar gain setting to expand its awareness and proposed a deviation to the left. They turned the airplane 12 left of the expected track to stay away from the most horrendously terrible of the climate. 2 minutes after the fact, the airplane experienced an updraft. A sound run-of-the-mill of ice gems raising a ruckus around town was heard. The PITO tubes fired, getting ice particles. Ordinarily this wouldn't be an issue, however, if the grouping of PITO tubes fire getting ice particles, precious stones, is high, sufficiently high they can obstruct them quicker than the underlying radiators can dissolve them. The 330 has 3 PTO tubes, 1 each for the skipper, the first official, and the backup instruments. Every PTO tube gauges the tension of the approaching air, which is PITO cylinders. Clarification then contrasted with the static strain to determine the plane's velocity. This information thusly is utilized to work out various different boundaries, including imprint number, vertical speed, and height, which are all showed promptly to the pilots. However, assuming ice gems obstruct the PITO tubes, air can't enter them, causing the estimated strain to drop, which thus causes a lessening in showed velocity. On Flight 447, as each of the 3 PITO tubes topped off with ice, the velocity readings immediately became invalid and fell from 275 to 139 bunches. This began a chain
response of issues. The autopilot disengaged and the flight chief. PITO tubes freeze up. Bars vanished. The airplane's flight control regulation changed from typical to substitute to, prompting the closure of many underlying securities like point of assault over speed and bank point security. In this way the airplane became more delicate to move inputs. I have the controls. The airplane moved right, and the primary official started hand flying the airplane, making nose up and left roll. Input. The auto push detached and went into push lock mode, freezing the power setting at 83%. The pitch mentality rose to 6 degrees and the upward speed expanded through 1,800 feet each moment, setting off the slow down. Cautioning a slow down happens when the airplane's wings can never again produce enough lift. This deficiency of lift prompts a abrupt diminishing in the airplane's capacity to remain airborne, making it drop or lose height quickly. Slow down. Clarification. The main official attempted to recapture command over the bank point and Over-controlled the roll input with the series of left and right banks. The control inputs were precisely out of stage, with the roll movement after a difficult battling to acquire control. He steadily figured out how to balance out the turn throughout the following 30 seconds, which quieted the slow down advance notice only seconds. Later the velocity demonstrated on the backup instrument started to rot once, really dropping sharp ly from 270 to 73 hitches. The airplane's pitch expanded by 11 degrees and its upward speed expanded through 6,000 feet each moment. The first official kept on making nose-up inputs. Also, the pitch disposition expanded to 16 degrees. A progression of little roll developments started. He counted each with sidelong stick input. The slow down advance notice was set off once more, and in the midst of the disorder endeavors were settled on to decision. The commander backed by ringing a call toll in the group rest region. The slow down approach was reached, making the airplane shake as it entered an efficiently unsound condition. Push was expanded to tour. The principal official kept on making nose up inputs, bringing about the airplane, keeping a shallow move. Most importantly, attempt to contact the sidelong controls as little as conceivable. The rolling proceeded. Also, the principal official data sources expanded, utilizing something like full left and right stick contributions to check them. The ice obstructing the pitot tubes had softened, and each of the three velocity markers showed the right readings of around 180 bunches. Obviously they were flying too leisurely for this flight level, as the ordinary velocity for their flying elevation was around 260 bunches seconds. Later the airplane arrived at its greatest height of very nearly 38,000 feet. It had acquired 3,000 feet in only 1 moment and 7 seconds since the autopilot detached. The bank point expanded to one side. Most extreme elevation came to. The primary official held full left stick, with basically no impact on the bank point. I don't have control of the airplane any longer. I don't have control of the airplane at all. Controls to the drop left. The alleviation first official made 2 full left control inputs. The first official kept his control stick completely to the left and pulled it as far as possible back. For almost 40 seconds the plunge rate expanded to 10,000 feet each moment. The pitch disposition changed between about 10 degrees and 16 degrees nose up. 2 minutes after the autopilot disengaged, the skipper entered the cockpit. The showed air speeds dipped under 60 bunches, which made the approach sensors invalid and hushed the slow down advance notice as the velocities fell under 30 bunches. A red SPD banner supplanted the velocity sign. In spite of the main official, his side stick being full passed on trying to control it, the airplane was shifted to one side, with bank points fluctuating up to 45 degrees. What are you doing? What's going on? I don't have the foggiest idea what's going on. We're failing to keep a grip on the airplane here. We lost all control of the airplane. The pitch demeanor posed from 8 degrees to 15 degrees. Nose up. The push switches were moved to inactive and the nose pitched down each time. The nose pitched down. The point of assault diminished marginally. The velocity sign returned and the slow down caution reactivated. I have the feeling that we have some insane speed. The first official sent the speed brakes, making the nose pitch up level with the skyline. The alleviation first official told him not to expand the speed brakes. What's more, they were withdrawn, thus the nose got back to 8 degrees beneath the skyline. Before prior to pitching up again, the airplane kept on slipping with Vertical rates among 10,000 and 15,000 feet each moment. The push switches were moved to the trip power setting. Furthermore, without precedent for a moment, the airplane's wings momentarily became level, showing a straight flight way. Anyway, this was over in a short while as the airplane kept on influencing left and right, inciting the primary official to make critical developments with the side stick to neutralize each roll development. Furthermore, settle the airplane as the airplane dropped through 20,000 feet. The push switches were moved from the ascension detent to robe. Not long after, the airplane started to move to the right. Full left side stick input was applied once more and held consistent for 20 seconds. We're there. We're passing level 100. They had as of now slid 28,000 feet at that time. Stand by. I have the controls. The help first official made a left information for around 7 seconds. However, the first official never delivered his side stick F input. What is why we're proceeding to go down in it. The help first official taught the commander to check whether a reset of the flight control PCs could help. The chief commented that it would do nothing, yet he reset essential and auxiliary flight control PCs. In any case, 9,000 foot climb. I've been at Max's nose up for some time. No, don't climb, so go down. The help first official pushed his own stick forward while the push switches were pulled back to climb power. The first official anyway kept on pulling back, and double information sounded again. Me the controls to me, controls to me. Go on, you have the controls. The alleviation first official brought the nose down to 7 degrees underneath the skyline. The velocities and yet again slow down. Advance notice were shown 7 seconds after the fact, in spite of the help first official saying he had the controls. The first official started to pull back on the side stick again. Double info was declared and the airplane began to pitch up. Double info, keep an eye out. Up, I'm pitching up. I'm pitching up. The push switches were pulled back to sit for 2 seconds and the nose pitched up to 16 degrees. You're pitching up. Well, we really want to. We are at 4,000 foot seconds after the fact as the airplane arrived at 2,500 feet. The ground nearness cautioning sounded in the cockpit. Go on, pull up. The push LS were moved to robe and both pilots applied a nose-up order as the crash airplane pitched up toward 16 Ds. Again, then the main official pushed the takeover button on his side stick, removing the alleviation first official's orders. We will crash. This can't be valid. The airplane dropped from 38,000 feet to ocean level in only 3 minutes and 30 seconds. Unfortunately, all travelers and group on board lost their lives, making it perhaps of the most sad day in flying history. Let us pause for a minute to reflect on the significant effect of this occasion and recollect the individuals who were lost before we go on with the examination. In memory of the 228 lives lost. Part soon after 4 a.m. when the flight had neglected to contact air traffic signal in either Seagal or Cape Verde. The regulator in Seagal endeavored to contact the airplane notwithstanding his salvage activity endeavors. He got no reaction. Brazil. Furthermore, Seagal cautioned salvage administrations starting the quest for the airplane. Anyway, the test was that Air France Flight 447 had apparently vanished in a locale lacking radar inclusion, without any chance of witnesses and with conflicting radio correspondence. 2 days after the fact, a Brazil particle plane spotted what gave off an impression of being an oil spill and light drifting garbage. A 2 or 3 days. Subsequently, search groups found 2 bodies alongside individual assets. The last resting put of Flight 447 was found on April 3, 2011 at a profundity of very nearly 4,000 m. By May 10, both secret elements had been found and were sent for investigation by the B. France's Air Well-being Office. In July 2012, the B distributed the last report on this mishap. The examination revealed a transitory disparity in the estimated speeds probably set off by the hindrance of the pitot tests due to last report ice gems. Accordingly, the autopilot detached and the flight control mode changed to substitute regulation. This activity deactivated a few underlying insurances like approach over speed and bank point insurance. Thus the airplane turned out to be more receptive to move inputs as framed in the related strategy. The pilots were expected to quickly analyze and address the issue with preventive measures on pitch disposition and push. Anyway, the disappointment startlingly happened during journey flight. Astounding the pilots, this brought about exorbitant roll dealing with inputs and an unexpected nose-up move. The airplane entered a supported slow-down, shown by the slow-down advance notice and solid smorgasbord. The slow-down advance notice and the pounding were not distinguished even later, having sounded consistently for 54 seconds. The team never endeavored a recuperation move to leave the slow-down, at last prompting the colliding with the sea the way that they won't ever make. A recuperation move was logical, an outcome of an absence of explicit preparation in spite of the fact that it fulfilled administrative guidelines manual. Airplane taking care of can't be made do. It requires exact and estimated contributions on the flight control's assessment of their last preparing records and check rides made it clear that the co-pilots had not been prepared for manual airplane treatment of way to deal with endlessly slowed down recuperation at high height. Based on the discoveries from the examination, the B given a few suggestions, including the accompanying investigating check and preparing projects to guarantee they incorporate compulsory practices center around setting up unambiguous, furthermore, standard drills for manual airplane taking care of during slow-down draws near and recuperation even at high height. Moreover, airplanes undertaking public transport trips with travelers must be outfitted with a picture recorder that takes into consideration perception of the whole instrument board. Furthermore, a few different proposals were proposed, such as ideas for the flight recorders, the P to tests better undertaking per taking in instance of expanded teams, and the establishment of an approach taking everything into account. It is apparent that no single understanding completely makes sense of the activities of the group in the interim. It would be useful in any event for non-pilots to consider the occasions of Air France Flight 447. How about we focus on gaining from others to guarantee more secure skies for everybody? On the off chance that you track down this video fascinating, kindly consider leaving a like, dropping a remark, and buying in to the channel for more satisfied like this.